Steele screamed as Kael tore the door off the wrecked SUV with one hand. The armored slab twisted around his fingers, hinges snapping loose in a shower of sparks. He hurled it across the alley where it struck the pavement, spun twice, and scraped beneath the white glare of a flickering security lamp. Engines roared from both ends of the narrow passage. 3 rival armored vehicles charged through the smoke, their reinforced bumpers grinding against brick walls as they tried to box him in. Tires shrieked. Headlights flashed. Metal barriers folded beneath heavy wheels. Kael stepped out of the ruined syndicate SUV and straightened to his full 6 feet 4 inches. His immaculate dark suit was coated in gray dust. One sleeve had been torn at the shoulder. His gold eyes burned beneath lowered brows as supernatural power rolled from his massive frame, turning the air around him dense and electric. Every instinct demanded that he shift. He could become the beast feared across Neon Ridge. He could rip through engines, peel open armored cabins, and leave the rival convoy scattered across the alley in heaps of twisted machinery. But apartment windows overlooked the street. Security cameras blinked above the loading docks. Hundreds of civilians were gathering only 2 blocks away for the Neon Ridge Midnight Festival. A public transformation would trigger panic, investigations, and questions his syndicate had spent decades preventing. Kael needed an exit. The first rival vehicle slammed sideways across the alley entrance. The second approached from behind. Then another engine growled beside him. It was deeper than the armored vehicles. Wilder. The sound vibrated through the pavement with the raw mechanical fury of a caged storm. A custom-built vintage muscle car idled beneath a broken neon sign. Its long black hood trembled around a polished air intake. Silver exhaust pipes curved beneath the rear bodywork. Wide tires rested beneath flared fenders, and the entire machine seemed too powerful for the narrow alley containing it. The passenger door stood open. Kael did not hesitate. He crossed the distance in 3 strides and folded his huge body into the passenger seat just as the first armored vehicle surged forward. He slammed the door shut and turned toward the driver. For one disorienting second, he forgot the convoy. The woman behind the wheel was stunning. She looked about 26, with sharp green eyes, full lips, and dark blonde hair tied in a loose knot that had surrendered several strands around her face. A fitted black tank top revealed toned shoulders beneath an open leather racing jacket. Motor oil smudged her fingers and marked one cheek like accidental war paint. One hand rested on the steering wheel. The other held a chrome gear lever. She was chewing pink bubblegum. Kael released enough alpha authority to make the windshield tremble. Drive. His voice struck the cabin like thunder. The woman looked at him. She did not scream. She did not freeze. She did not even blink. She slowly blew a pink bubble until it expanded between them. It popped softly. Then she pointed toward his shoulder. Seatbelt. Kael stared at her. An armored bumper struck the rear of the muscle car. The impact shoved them forward. The woman caught the wheel without spilling the metal cup balanced beside the gear lever. Kael's eyes flared brighter. Drive now. I heard you the first time, skyscraper. She pulled the gum back into her mouth. But if I launch with you sitting like that, your giant head is going through my windshield. Then you'll ruin the glass, the dashboard, and probably my leather. Another vehicle entered the alley. Kael had ruled the Shadow Syndicate for 12 years. He had silenced hostile councils with a glance. Criminal empires had surrendered territory when he entered a room. No one called him skyscraper. No one delayed obedience because of upholstery. He leaned closer, filling the passenger side with muscle, heat, and barely restrained menace. Do you understand who I am? The woman glanced at his glowing eyes. An uninvited passenger with poor manners. The rival engine behind them revved. She tapped the seatbelt buckle with one oil-smudged finger. Click it, or get out. Kael's jaw tightened so hard the leather seat creaked beneath his grip. The front vehicle accelerated. He seized the belt and dragged it across his chest. The buckle clicked. The woman smiled. Good boy. She slammed the gas pedal down. The Apex muscle car exploded backward. Kael's shoulders hit the seat. The engine roared with such force that the mirrors blurred. Thick smoke erupted from the rear tires as the machine launched toward the armored vehicle behind them. They were going the wrong direction. Kael grabbed the dashboard. There is a vehicle behind us. I noticed. You are accelerating toward it. I noticed that too. The distance vanished. 20 feet. 10. 5. The rival driver tried to reverse, but the armored vehicle was wedged between the alley walls. The woman twisted the wheel, crushed the clutch, and yanked the chrome lever. The Apex rotated. Not turned. Rotated. Its rear tires swept across the pavement in a violent arc. Smoke swallowed the windows. Kael's body was pinned sideways by the force as the car spun through a perfect 180-degree drift. The rear bumper missed the armored grille by less than an inch. The muscle car completed the rotation facing forward, still moving backward. Before Kael could process the impossible maneuver, the driver shifted again and floored the accelerator. The tires caught. The entire car launched toward the blocked front exit. The rival vehicle there swerved to intercept. She smiled around her gum. Hold on. I am wearing the belt. Then pray the bolts are good. She jerked the handbrake. The Apex slid sideways at full speed. Kael felt control leave him completely. It was not the calculated loss of control he allowed during combat. It was not surrender to his wolf or a strategic risk made after studying every possible outcome. This was chaos. The alley spun beyond the windshield. Neon signs became streaks. Brick walls rushed past his window, close enough to shave dust from the mirror. The rival vehicle's headlights filled the cabin. Kael's instincts roared at him to seize the wheel. He reached for it. The woman slapped his hand away. Touch my steering wheel and I break your fingers. Kael looked at her in disbelief. She countersteered with one hand. The Apex snapped around the rival vehicle's front bumper. The armored machine missed them, struck a row of blue water barrels, and plowed through them harmlessly. Plastic containers burst into the air. Water erupted across the alley in glittering sheets. The pursuing vehicles entered the sudden flood. Their heavy tires lost traction. One spun into a stack of empty shipping crates. Another slid sideways and blocked the third. The Apex shot between them through a gap barely wider than its mirrors. Water sprayed over the windshield. The driver activated the wipers with a casual flick. Kael looked back. The rivals were trapped in a tangled barricade of armored vehicles, scattered barrels, broken crates, and clouds of steam rising from overheated engines. No one appeared injured. No civilians had seen anything beyond a traffic collision. It was flawless. It was also completely insane. The Apex burst from the alley and entered a neon-lit service road at a speed that made every street lamp stretch into a glowing line. Kael's hand remained locked around the door handle. The woman glanced at it. You can let go. That handle is reinforced, but I'd rather not find out whether it's alpha-proof. He slowly released the metal. 5 deep impressions remained beneath his fingers. Her gaze moved to the damaged handle. You bent it. You kidnapped me. You climbed into my car. Under hostile pursuit. Still counts as voluntary entry. Kael studied her profile. Who are you? She changed gears. The engine's roar dropped into a lower, smoother rhythm. Stella. Your full name. No, his alpha aura expanded. The temperature inside the cabin seemed to fall. Golden light sharpened in his eyes, and his voice deepened into the command tone that compelled lesser wolves to their knees. Tell me your full name. Stella reached toward the dashboard. Kael expected her to reveal a weapon. She turned the radio volume higher. A pounding bass line filled the car. Your spooky voice is ruining the song. Kael stared at her. The world had become irrational. His convoy had been ambushed. His secure vehicle had been crushed between armored attackers. He had torn through steel, escaped a coordinated blockade, and entered a stranger's car. Yet the most dangerous element of the entire night was the woman tapping her fingers against the steering wheel, as if transporting an enraged Alpha King were a minor inconvenience. "Turn around," he ordered. "No. I need to return to the crash site." "Also no. My people will arrive. Then your people can clean up the barrels. They will assume I have been taken." Stella checked the rearview mirror. "Have you?" Kael's gaze hardened. She grinned. "Relax, skyscraper. I'm getting you away from the armored creeps. Once we lose any trackers, you can stomp out of my car and command the pavement to fear you." Kael looked at the dashboard. The original instruments had been replaced with custom gauges, toggle switches, and a digital map of Neon Ridge. A red dot blinked behind them. "You detected a tracker?" "I detected 4. She flipped a switch. A compact signal jammer hummed beneath the rear seat. 3 red dots vanished. 1 remained. Stella frowned. "That one's physical." Kael examined the side mirror. A small magnetic device clung beneath the rear fender. "I can remove it." "At this speed?" "Yes." "No." Kael unbuckled his seatbelt. Stella's head snapped toward him. "What did I say about the belt?" "I am not asking permission." He lowered the window. Wind exploded into the cabin, tearing loose strands of her hair across her face. Kael twisted his upper body through the opening. His shoulders barely fit. His fingers found the roof gutter as the apex tore around a sweeping curve. Stella watched him for half a second. "You fall off. I'm not circling back." "I do not fall. Everyone falls. Gravity has no respect for titles." Kael extended one arm along the outside of the car. The road blurred inches beneath his hand. He caught the tracking device between 2 fingers, crushed it into a curled fragment, and flicked it into an empty roadside bin as they passed. He returned to the seat. Stella looked at the map. The final red dot disappeared. "Not bad." Kael closed the window. "Not bad? You almost missed the bin." "I destroyed a military-grade tracking unit while traveling at extreme speed." "Sure. But you almost missed the bin." Kael fastened the seatbelt again, this time without being told. He disliked the small curve that appeared at the corner of Stella's mouth when she noticed. The city opened around them. Neon Ridge rose in tiers of glass towers, elevated highways, old industrial bridges, and glowing signs reflected across black pavement. Midnight traffic streamed beneath them. Far ahead, the central skyline burned violet and silver against the clouds. Stella guided the apex onto an unfinished overpass. Construction barricades blocked the route. She accelerated. Kael looked ahead. "The road is closed. Technically. It ends. Eventually." "Stella." She glanced at him. Something in his tone had changed. It was still commanding, still edged with alpha dominance, but beneath it lived the first trace of uncertainty he had allowed anyone to hear in years. Her grin widened. "There it is." "What?" "Fear. I do not experience fear." "Then your hand is crushing my seat." Kael looked down. His fingers had sunk into the leather beside his thigh. He released it at once. "I am evaluating your poor decision-making." "No, you're discovering that someone else has control." The words struck more accurately than he wanted to admit. Kael controlled everything. His territory, his businesses, his soldiers, his emotions, his wolf. Control was not merely a preference. It was the structure that kept his power from destroying everything around him. Now Stella raced toward the broken edge of an unfinished overpass, humming with the radio, while his instincts demanded that he take command. "Brake," he said. "No." "Brake." "No." "Stella, brake." She blew another pink bubble. The apex hit the construction barricade. Lightweight panels flew apart. Sparks streamed beneath the chassis as the front wheels struck a metal ramp left by the night crew. The car launched into open air. For one endless second, Neon Ridge dropped away beneath them. Kael saw lower traffic lanes, glowing towers, and the silver rails of the completed highway across the gap. The engine howled. Stella's hands remained steady. The apex landed hard on the opposite roadway. The suspension compressed. Tires struck asphalt. The rear end kicked sideways, but Stella corrected instantly and sent the muscle car surging between two startled delivery vans. Kael's pulse thundered. Stella laughed. It was bright, reckless, and entirely free. The sound cut through the fading roar of his survival instincts. He turned toward her. Her green eyes shone with exhilaration. Wind moved through her loose hair. Oil stained her fingers, and confidence softened every motion as she guided the powerful machine through traffic. She had not obeyed him. She had not feared him. She had taken the most controlled man in Neon Ridge, strapped him into the passenger seat, and hurled him across an unfinished highway. Kael should have been furious. Instead, something deep inside him went still. His wolf, which had raged since the ambush, pressed forward with sudden fascination. Stella changed gears and glanced at him. Still alive? Kael's golden eyes moved over her face. Yes. Good. Cleaning alpha-sized dents out of the passenger side would be expensive. You are either the finest driver in Neon Ridge or the most reckless. I'm both. That is not reassuring. It wasn't supposed to be. Behind them, distant headlights appeared at the edge of the completed highway. Two surviving armored vehicles had found another route. Stella saw them in the mirror. Her smile returned. Kael followed her gaze. Power gathered through his shoulders, ready to bend more metal. Stella placed one hand against his chest. The contact froze him more effectively than any weapon could have. Sit back, she said. Keep your belt on. Kael looked down at her hand, then at the pursuing vehicles. You have a plan? No. His expression darkened. Stella shifted into a higher gear. But I have a full tank. The Apex engine roared. Neon light poured across the windshield as the highway curved toward the heart of the city. Stella crushed the accelerator, and Kael was pinned into the leather once again, carried forward by a woman who treated danger like fuel and control like something meant to be broken. For the first time in his life, the Alpha King had no idea where he was going. For the first time in his life, he did not order the driver to stop. The armored headlights grew larger in the mirror. Stella did not slow down. She flicked two switches beneath the dashboard, dropped the Apex into a lower gear, and sent the engine into a deep, furious growl that vibrated through Kael's bones. Neon signs streamed across the windshield in violet, blue, and electric green as the highway divided ahead. 3 lanes curved upward toward the city center. 2 descended into the industrial district. Stella chose neither. She snapped the wheel right and drove straight through a narrow maintenance, opening between concrete barriers. Kael's shoulder nearly struck the door. That is not a road. It is tonight. The Apex plunged down a steep service ramp barely wide enough for the car. Concrete walls closed around them. Overhead lights flashed in rapid succession, turning Stella's face into a sequence of sharp shadows and bright smiles. The armored vehicles followed. Their reinforced bodies scraped against the tunnel walls. Sparks burst behind them in long orange trails. Kael watched through the rear window. They are still coming. I know. You appear pleased. I like an audience. The service tunnel split into 3 passages. Stella took the center route, then yanked the handbrake and spun the Apex around a support pillar. The rear tires screamed. Smoke filled the passage. Before the pursuing drivers could see which direction she had chosen, she reversed into the left tunnel, cut the lights, and rolled silently behind a line of abandoned maintenance carts. The first armored vehicle charged through the center passage. The second followed it. Their engines faded into the distance. Stella waited 3 seconds. Then she started forward without turning the headlights back on. Kael studied the darkness ahead. You cannot see. I can see enough. That is not reassuring. You survived the unfinished overpass. Survival does not make your methods reasonable. Reasonable is slow. The tunnel curved sharply. Stella guided the car by the dim amber glow of emergency strips embedded in the floor. The walls were covered in old racing symbols, faded arrows, and names painted by drivers who had claimed the underground routes long before the city sealed them. At the next junction, she turned the lights on again. A single armored vehicle appeared behind them. Kael's jaw tightened. You missed one. No, that one missed the turn. You sound offended. I'm a professional. She accelerated toward another split, then entered a narrow cylindrical tunnel lined with pipes. Steam drifted from overhead valves. The Apex's exhaust note multiplied against the curved walls until it sounded like a dozen engines racing together. The pursuer entered behind them. Its roof struck a low-hanging pipe. Sparks sprayed across its windshield. It slowed. Stella did not. She drove deeper into the tunnel, shifted twice, and aimed toward a circular steel door that appeared completely closed. Kael leaned forward. That door is sealed. Mostly. There is no visible opening. That is what makes it useful. She slapped a red button beside the gear lever. The steel door began to rise. Slowly. Far too slowly. Kael looked from the narrowing distance to the bottom edge of the door. Brake. You said that last time. The clearance is insufficient. You worry too much. The door lifted 3 feet. The apex was nearly 5 feet tall. Stella hit another switch. The suspension dropped. The entire car sank closer to the ground. Kael's knees rose toward the dashboard. You modified the suspension to crawl beneath security doors? I modified the suspension because it looked better. The door lifted another foot. Stella flattened herself over the wheel and kept accelerating. Kael, who could not make himself smaller without removing sections of his body, braced one hand against the roof. The apex shot beneath the rising steel. Its antenna snapped backward. The top of the car missed the door by an inch. The armored vehicle behind them tried to follow. The steel barrier dropped. Its reinforced bumper struck the door with a deafening metallic crash. The front suspension compressed. Steam burst from beneath the hood, and the vehicle remained trapped on the opposite side. Stella raised the apex to its normal height. Kael slowly released the roof. There were 5 fresh dents above his fingertips. She glanced upward. You are paying for that. I was preventing the roof from collapsing. The roof was not collapsing. It was close. It was fine. You have a dangerous understanding of that word. Stella grinned and turned into a darker tunnel. The route twisted beneath Neon Ridge for several minutes. Old ventilation fans hummed above them. Water dripped along the concrete walls. The city's bright pulse gradually vanished until only the apex's headlights remained. At last, Stella approached what appeared to be a dead end. She flashed the headlights twice, paused, then flashed them once more. A section of graffiti-covered concrete slid sideways. Warm yellow light spilled through the opening. Stella drove inside. The hidden door closed behind them. The garage was enormous. It occupied an abandoned underground station, its vaulted ceiling supported by thick steel beams and old stone pillars. Fluorescent lights hung above work tables, covered in tools, engine components, cables, and polished metal parts. Several custom vehicles rested beneath canvas covers. Tires were stacked along the far wall. A hydraulic lift stood in the center, beneath a network of chains and mechanical arms. The air smelled of motor oil, hot metal, and burnt rubber. Kael stepped out of the apex. His legs felt stable, which he considered a personal victory. He adjusted his torn suit sleeve, straightened his shirt cuffs, and restored his expression to the cold, unreadable mask that had intimidated half the city. Stella exited on the opposite side. She closed the door gently, then immediately crouched to inspect the rear tire. Kael waited. She ran her hand over the rubber. He waited longer. She inspected the wheel well. Your pursuers knocked my alignment off by at least 2 degrees, she said. Kael's voice filled the garage. Look at me. Stella glanced over her shoulder. He stood beneath the fluorescent lights like a ruler arriving to claim conquered territory. His broad frame seemed too large for the tailored suit. Dust marked one shoulder, but his posture remained flawless. His gold eyes had returned to a controlled, dark amber. He reached inside his jacket and removed a heavy coin. It was nearly the width of his palm, forged from solid gold and stamped with the crest of the Shadow Syndicate. A crowned wolf stood on one side. On the other was the ancient symbol of an unbroken oath. Kael held it between two fingers. This coin is worth more than your vehicle. Stella rose slowly. Her expression changed. For the first time since he had entered her car, she looked genuinely offended. Kael continued, "It is payment for tonight." He tossed the coin. She caught it. "And an advance," he said, "for your new position." "My new position?" "Ah, you will serve as my exclusive driver." Stella looked at the coin, then at him. Kael mistook her silence for consideration. "You will receive protection, unrestricted access to syndicate resources, and compensation beyond anything available in the underground racing circuits." She threw the coin back. Kael caught it against his chest. "No." The word echoed through the garage. His eyes narrowed. "You have not heard the full offer. I heard the part where you confused my car with a taxi. This is not a negotiation. Then you're having the wrong conversation. I do not repeat offers. Great. Saves time." She walked past him toward a large tool cabinet. Kael turned. "You rejected a syndicate oath coin. I rejected a shiny leash. It is solid gold. So is bad taste, apparently." Kael looked down at the coin in his hand, as if it had personally betrayed him. No one returned a Shadow Syndicate coin. Politicians accepted them. Judges hid them. Rival leaders locked them inside private vaults because possessing one could buy protection from any syndicate-controlled district in Neon Ridge. Stella had tossed it back like an unwanted parking token. She opened the tool cabinet and selected a long steel wrench. Kael approached her. "You misunderstand the value of what I offered." "No, I understand it perfectly. You could purchase this entire garage. I already own this garage. You could improve it." She looked around at the organized chaos of engines, tools, lifts, and custom machinery. "Careful." Kael stopped. Stella tapped the wrench against her palm. "There are 3 things you don't insult in my garage: my tools, my cars, and my work." "And the driver?" "She can insult you back." A corner of Kael's mouth almost moved. He prevented it. Stella walked to the rear of the apex and crouched beside the exhaust system. "The last impact loosened the rear mounting bracket." "That concerns me. How?" She held out the wrench. Kael looked at it, then at her, then back at the wrench. "What is that?" "A wrench." "I know what it is." "Good. We're making progress." She pushed it toward him. Kael did not take it. Stella sighed. "In this garage, everyone works. I am not everyone. Tonight you are. I lead the Shadow Syndicate. And right now, the Shadow Syndicate is standing in my garage wearing a suit that probably costs more than my lift and doing absolutely nothing useful." Kael's alpha power stirred. The fluorescent lights flickered. Several hanging chains began to sway. Stella looked upward. "Stop doing that. You'll mess with the voltage." Kael stepped closer. He towered over her, forcing her to tilt her head back. His shoulders blocked the light. Gold sharpened around his pupils. "I do not take orders." Stella placed the wrench against his chest. "You climbed into my car. That was tactical necessity. You wore the seatbelt. Also tactical necessity. You stayed in the passenger seat, because removing you while driving would have endangered civilians. You listened every time I told you not to touch the wheel." Kael leaned down until only inches separated them. "I showed restraint." Stella did not retreat. Her green eyes remained fixed on his. "Then show some more." She released the wrench. Kael caught it automatically. Stella turned away. "Take off your jacket." The steel wrench groaned in his grip. He looked down. The thick handle had bent slightly beneath his fingers. Stella looked back and saw it. "That comes out of your payment. You refused payment. Then it comes out of your dignity. I have no intention of crawling beneath your vehicle. You bent my door handle, dented my roof. and added about 300 pounds of terrified alpha to the passenger side during a jump. I was not terrified. The seat remembers differently. Kael stared at the car, then at the wrench, then at Stella. His instincts advised him to leave. His guards would already be searching the city. He could summon a secure convoy within minutes. Yet the idea of walking away felt strangely similar to surrender. He removed his jacket. Stella's attention shifted despite herself. The expensive fabric slid from his shoulders, revealing the full breadth of the body beneath it. His dark shirt stretched across a massive chest and sharply defined arms. The sleeves were fitted tightly around thick muscle, and when he rolled them toward his elbows, the movement revealed powerful forearms marked by faint silver scars and veins raised beneath warm skin. Stella looked away first. Kael noticed. His authority returned by several satisfying degrees. Where should I place this? She gestured toward a metal hook. Anywhere that oil can't reach it. He hung the jacket carefully. Stella watched the precision. You fold your socks, don't you? I have staff. That is somehow worse. She slid a low mechanic's creeper beneath the apex. Kael looked at the second one beside it. It is too small. It has wheels. So does a child's toy. You'll fit. I will not. You fit into the passenger seat. Barely. You complained less while being chased. I did not complain. Stella lay down on the creeper and rolled beneath the car. Her boots disappeared first, then her leather jacket, then the mocking curve of her mouth. Bring the wrench, Your Majesty. Kael's gaze darkened. He lowered himself onto the second creeper. The small platform creaked beneath his weight. This equipment is inadequate. It supports an engine block. I weigh more than an engine block. That explains the suspension. Kael pushed himself beneath the apex. The space immediately became too narrow. His chest nearly touched the undercarriage. One shoulder pressed against Stella's. Pipes, brackets, and steel panels surrounded them beneath the fluorescent work light she had hooked to the frame. Stella pointed toward a loosened exhaust clamp. Hold that pipe steady. Kael examined it. You want me to hold metal? Yes. That is the full extent of my task? For now. He wrapped one hand around the exhaust pipe. Stella fitted a smaller tool over the bolt and began tightening it. Their shoulders remained pressed together. The contact should have been insignificant. It was not. Kael could feel the warmth of her through the thin fabric of his shirt. He could smell leather, motor oil, bubblegum, and something beneath them that belonged only to her. His wolf stirred. Not with aggression. With interest. Stella adjusted her position. Her arm slid across his chest as she reached for a better angle. Kael's grip tightened. The exhaust pipe bent. Stella froze. Did you just crush my exhaust? It moved. Because you squeezed it like it insulted your family. It is poorly reinforced. It was handcrafted. Then the craftsman lacked foresight. I'm the craftsman. Kael looked at her. Stella looked back. They were lying inches apart beneath 2 tons of custom machinery, arguing over bent metal while fluorescent light hummed above them. Her hair had loosened further. A strand rested against her cheek. Oil marked the tip of her nose. Kael felt an unfamiliar urge to wipe it away. Instead, he said, "The pipe is still functional." That is not an apology. Alphas do not apologize to exhaust systems. You're not apologizing to the exhaust system. He considered that, then adjusted his grip with exaggerated gentleness. Stella returned to the bolt. Hold it steady. Steady means no bending, crushing, threatening, commanding, or asserting dominance. You have an excessive number of rules. You have an excessive number of control issues. I maintain order. You tried to buy me 5 minutes after I saved you. I offered employment. You issued ownership terms. I said exclusive. You said it like you were annexing a country. Kael watched her work. Her fingers moved with total confidence. She understood every bolt, seam, and vibration in the vehicle above them. There was no hesitation in her, no desire to impress him, no awareness that she should be intimidated. She was entirely focused on the machine. Kael shifted closer. The movement crowded her against the undercarriage. Stella stopped turning the wrench. You need something? I am observing. You are looming horizontally. I did not know that was possible. You make it look natural. His voice lowered. Most people become nervous when I stand this close. Most people probably aren't holding a socket wrench. You believe a tool protects you? No. I believe you're too obsessed with control to risk damaging the car while we're under it. Kael's gaze moved over her face. She had calculated him correctly. That irritated him more than fearlessness would have. You assume much. You announce everything without speaking. And what am I announcing now? Stella tightened the final turn, then looked directly into his glowing eyes. That you hate taking orders. His jaw hardened. That you hate being trapped in the passenger seat. His hand remained steady on the pipe. And that you're trying very hard to intimidate me because you don't know what else to do. The garage seemed to become quieter. Kael brought his face closer. His size filled the narrow space. His shoulders caged her between his body and the underside of the apex. Any other person would have looked away. Stella lifted one eyebrow. Finished? Kael's voice became a low rumble. Not remotely. With the exhaust. He stared at her. She tapped the bracket. The exhaust, Kael! It was the first time she had used his name. His wolf went completely still. Stella seemed unaware of what she had done. She checked the clamp, tested the pipe, and nodded in satisfaction. That should hold. She began rolling out. Kael caught the edge of her creeper. It stopped. She looked at his hand, then at him. Problem? You knew my name. Your face is on half the syndicate warnings in the racing district. And you still refuse the coin. I knew who you were before you got into my car. Kael's fascination sharpened. You recognized me in the alley? The glowing eyes were a clue. You were never afraid. Stella's expression softened, but only slightly. I was busy driving. He released the creeper. She rolled out from beneath the car. Kael remained there for another moment, staring at the steel frame above him. He had spent his life surrounded by people who anticipated his demands. Fear created distance. Authority created obedience. Power made every room predictable. Stella had rejected all three. She had ordered him into a seatbelt, thrown away his gold, mocked his suit, handed him a wrench, and made him crawl beneath her car. He should have left. Instead, he wanted to know what impossible thing she would demand next. Kael rolled out and stood. Stella was already wiping her hands on a cloth. She looked at the bent wrench in his grip. You owe me a new one. I will purchase the manufacturer. I don't want the manufacturer. What do you want? She tossed the cloth onto the workbench. For you to stop trying to own everything you can't control. Kael stepped toward her. She held her ground. The fluorescent lights reflected gold in his eyes and green in hers. And if I cannot? Stella placed one oil-stained finger against the center of his immaculate shirt. Then you'd better learn to keep up. She turned away and walked toward the apex. Kael looked down. A black fingerprint marked the white fabric over his chest. His suit was ruined. His authority had been ignored. His offer had been rejected. And as Stella opened the hood of the muscle car, leaned over the engine, and began humming beneath her breath, Kael realized with absolute clarity that he had never wanted anything more. The black fingerprint on Kael's shirt remained exactly where Stella had left it. He had not wiped it away. He told himself this was because the garage lacked proper garment supplies. He told himself the mark was insignificant. He told himself several things while standing beside the apex, with his sleeves rolled to his elbows, watching Stella lean over the open engine bay. None of them were convincing. She adjusted a braided fuel line, checked the polished intake housing, and listened to the engine idle, with her head tilted slightly to one side. Her expression had changed from teasing confidence to complete mechanical concentration. Kael recognized that kind of focus. It was the same stillness he carried into negotiations before dismantling an opponent's strategy. The same precise attention he used when controlling his territory. Except Stella's kingdom was made of steel, fuel, heat, and impossible speed. She tightened a fitting and glanced at him. Stop staring. I am not staring. You've been standing there for 4 minutes. I am evaluating the vehicle. You're facing me. You are blocking the vehicle. She looked around the massive garage. I'm blocking all of it? Kael's mouth tightened. Stella smiled and lowered the hood. The heavy panel locked into place with a deep metallic click. There. Exhaust bracket secured, tracker removed, suspension checked, and your fingerprints are now permanently embedded in the roof. You exaggerate. You dented reinforced steel. It was a structural precaution. It was panic. Kael stepped closer. The air between them tightened instantly. Stella's smile did not disappear, but it changed. The humor remained while something warmer moved beneath it. Kael noticed the shift because he noticed everything about her now. The faint sheen of heat along her skin, the strand of hair caught against her lower lip, the motor oil on her knuckles. The way she looked at him directly, without fear or submission, as though his size and power were merely additional facts to be considered. He lowered his voice. You take pleasure in provoking me. I take pleasure in being right. You assume those are the same thing. With you, they usually are. A low vibration rolled through the garage. Kael's head turned before Stella reacted. It came again. Not thunder. Engines. Several of them. Heavy, armored, moving through the tunnel network. Stella's expression sharpened. The garage lights flickered. Kael's body became still. Every trace of banter vanished from his face. The man who had crawled beneath a car and argued about exhaust clamps disappeared. In his place stood the ruler of the Shadow Syndicate, cold, immense, and instantly dangerous. They found the lower access route, he said. Stella walked to the security monitors mounted above the main workbench. 6 camera feeds showed the abandoned tunnels surrounding the garage. Most remained empty. Then movement crossed the 4th screen. A massive armored van rolled through a maintenance junction, its headlights cutting through steam. A second vehicle followed, then a third. The rival convoy was not searching blindly. They were moving with purpose. Stella zoomed in on the feed. They have tunnel schematics. Those routes were sealed years ago. Sealed routes still exist. Only city engineers and syndicate intelligence would have access. Then one of your people has expensive taste and weak loyalty. Kael looked at her. Your conclusion is reckless. It's also obvious. A warning light began flashing over the security console. On another camera, the 3 armored vans entered the main departure tunnel and spread across the width of the passage. One positioned itself sideways. The other 2 angled behind it, creating overlapping walls of reinforced steel. The route was completely blocked. Kael's phone vibrated inside his jacket. He removed it and looked at the screen. No signal. Stella checked her own device. They're jamming communications. They want me isolated. Should I feel insulted that I'm being treated like background scenery? They do not know who you are. Neither did you an hour ago. I know enough now. Stella glanced at him. The meaning in his voice held her attention for half a second too long. Then a loud metallic impact echoed from the tunnel beyond the hidden door. The rival vehicles had reached the outer barrier. Kael walked toward his jacket. Stella moved to the apex. He slid his arms into the dark fabric and ignored the ruined shoulder, the dust, and the black fingerprint on his shirt. His posture straightened as he buttoned the front. What are you doing? Stella asked, ending this. By walking into 3 armored vans? Yes. That sounds inefficient. It will be direct. He crossed toward the hidden exit. Stella stepped into his path. Kael stopped. She looked smaller than him, only in height. Nothing else about her presence was small. You're not going out there. This is not a discussion. Correct. Move toward that door again, and I'm locking you in the supply room. Kael's gold eyes brightened. You believe a lock can hold me? No. But watching you tear through a shelf of cleaning products would improve my night. Another impact struck the outer barrier. Dust fell from the ceiling. Kael's jaw hardened. They will breach the door. Then we leave first. The main exit is blocked. I saw. There is no secondary route wide enough for the vehicle. I know. I can remove the blockade. Stella folded her arms. Remove it how? Kael looked toward the security monitor. The 3 armored vans filled the tunnel. I will move them. With your hands. Yes. While their engines are running. Yes. While they try to crush you against the walls. They will fail. Stella studied him. There was no arrogance in his answer, only certainty. He truly believed he could step into the tunnel, seize several tons of armored steel, and tear the blockade apart. After watching him remove a reinforced SUV door with one hand, she believed it too. That was precisely the problem. Kael moved around her. Stella caught his arm. The contact stopped him. Her fingers did not come close to circling his forearm, yet the moment her hand closed over his sleeve, his entire body reacted. His wolf surged toward the touch. Kael looked down at her hand, then at her face. Release me. No. The command in his voice deepened. Stella, they'll turn the tunnel into a demolition zone. I have survived worse. I'm not worried about you. His expression changed. She pointed toward the apex. I'm worried about my car. Kael stared at her. They are attacking the garage, and when you start throwing armored vans, what do you think they'll hit? I can control the direction. You bent an exhaust pipe because my arm touched your chest. That was different. Why? Kael did not answer. Stella's mouth curved. That's what I thought. The outer door groaned under another impact. A thin line of dust descended from its upper frame. Stella released Kael and opened the driver's door. Get in. He looked toward the blockade on the monitor, then back at her. There is nowhere to drive. There is always somewhere to drive. The tunnel is physically sealed. Mostly. Kael's expression darkened at the familiar word. Your definition of mostly has attempted to kill me twice, and failed both times. Stella, she pointed at the passenger side. Seatbelt. The metal barrier buckled inward. Kael could hear rival engines revving on the other side. He could smell overheated brakes and burning fuel through the ventilation system. Every instinct demanded confrontation. He could walk through the collapsing entrance and seize the first van before it gained speed. He could crush the axle, turn the machine sideways, and use it as a shield while dismantling the others. It would be controlled, predictable, his. Stella slid behind the wheel. The dashboard lights illuminated her face in soft red and blue. Trust me. The words reached him through the engine noise. Kael went still. Trust was not a word he allowed easily. It belonged in contracts, sworn oaths, and carefully tested alliances. It was not something offered to a street racer with bubblegum on her tongue and chaos in her eyes. The outer barrier bent again. Kael looked at Stella. She was waiting. Not begging. Not explaining. Waiting. He crossed to the passenger side and got in. Stella smiled. That must have hurt. What? Choosing not to punch the problem. I do not punch vehicles. You tear the doors off. It is more efficient. He pulled the seatbelt across his chest. The buckle clicked. Stella started the apex. The engine came alive with a deep, violent roar that rolled through the garage. Fluorescent lights trembled. Tools vibrated against the workbenches. Kael looked toward the hidden door. How do you intend to pass the blockade? I'm still deciding. You asked me to trust you without a plan. I have most of one. What portion is missing? The part between acceleration and survival. Kael closed his eyes for 1 second. Stella laughed. The outer barrier ruptured inward. A section of steel folded across the floor. White headlights blasted through the opening as the first armored van forced its reinforced bumper into the garage entrance. Stella shifted into reverse. The apex shot backward. She swung the rear around, aligned the car with a narrow service passage behind the hydraulic lift, and accelerated. Kael examined the tunnel ahead. This route reconnects with the main departure tunnel. Exactly. On the wrong side of the blockade? Not exactly. The service passage descended, curved beneath the garage, and began climbing sharply. The engine strained as Stella pushed faster. Kael watched the map. The route would emerge less than 200 feet from the armored vans, directly in front of them. You are driving toward the blockade. Again, yes, there is no space between the vehicles. Also, yes. And you objected to my plan because it involved property damage. I objected because your property damage lacked style. The apex burst from the service passage. The main tunnel opened before them. 3 massive armored vans stood across the route under rows of pale industrial lights. Their reinforced bodies formed an unbroken wall. The central van faced the apex directly. The 2 beside it were angled inward, leaving no visible gap. Rival drivers stepped on their accelerators. The vans surged forward together. Stella shifted higher. Kael felt the muscle car gather speed. 50 miles per hour. 70. 90. The tunnel walls became gray streaks. The distance closed with terrifying speed. Kael studied the blockade. No gap. I know. No side route. I know. No elevated lane. Stella's hand moved toward a guarded red switch on the dashboard. Kael saw it. What is that? Her grin widened. A terrible financial decision. She flipped the guard upward. Beneath it was a polished red toggle marked N20. Kael stared at it. You installed nitrous oxide in this vehicle. A heavy dual-stage system. That engine is already producing more power than the chassis should tolerate. Now you sound like my insurance company. You have insurance? No. Stella flipped the switch. A mechanical hiss moved beneath their seats. Blue lights ignited across the dashboard. Pressure gauges snapped upward. Hidden valves opened with sharp metallic clicks. The engine changed. Its roar deepened into something enormous and animal, a mechanical beast waking beneath the hood. The entire apex vibrated as compressed force flooded the system. Kael felt the passenger seat press against his spine. What is the target? He demanded. Stella pointed through the windshield. A tilted construction ramp rested near the tunnel wall ahead. It had once been used to move equipment onto an elevated maintenance platform. One end was braced against broken concrete. The other rose at a steep angle toward the ceiling. It was narrow, uneven, and positioned several feet to the left of the oncoming blockade. Kael understood. No. Stella's eyes shone. You said you trusted me. I entered the car. I did not authorize flight. Authorization accepted. I gave none. Too late. She pressed the accelerator to the floor. The nitrous system engaged. Blue flames erupted from the exhaust. The apex launched forward with such force that Kael's head struck the seat. His hand closed around the door grip. The metal groaned beneath his fingers. The speedometer climbed beyond its final marked number. The armored vans rushed toward them. The rival drivers held formation, expecting Stella to turn away. She did not. 100 feet. 70. 40. At the last possible moment, Stella snapped the wheel left. The apex cut across the central van's path. Its reinforced bumper missed the rear quarter panel by inches. Stella corrected right and aligned with the construction ramp. The left tires struck first. The car climbed at an angle. Metal scraped underneath them. Sparks exploded along both sides in brilliant orange streams. Kael saw the tunnel floor fall away. Then the apex launched. The engine roared in open air. Blue exhaust flames burned beneath the rear bumper. For one impossible moment, the muscle car flew above 3 armored vans. Time seemed to stop. Kael looked down through the side window. The roof of the first van passed beneath them, close enough that he could see dust vibrating across the metal. The second followed. The third driver looked upward, eyes wide, both hands locked around the wheel. Stella laughed. The sound filled the cabin. It was wild and bright and utterly fearless. Dashboard lights illuminated her face in blue and crimson. Her hair had torn loose from its knot and streamed behind her. Both hands held the wheel with perfect control, but her expression belonged to pure exhilaration. Kael stopped looking at the ground. He stopped looking at the vans. He looked only at her. Every person in his life had treated power as gravity. They moved around it carefully. They lowered their voices near it. They measured every action according to the danger of displeasing him. Stella treated gravity itself as a suggestion. The apex cleared the final van. Its front end began to drop. "Brace," Stella said. Kael tightened the seatbelt with one hand. The car landed. The rear tires struck first, bounced, and slammed down again. Sparks burst beneath the chassis. The suspension compressed to its limits. The apex swerved toward the tunnel wall. Stella countersteered. The car slid sideways, tires screaming, then snapped straight without losing speed. Behind them, the rival drivers reacted too late. The central van braked. The left van turned inward. The right van tried to reverse. All three collided. Reinforced bumpers folded into one another with a series of spectacular metallic crashes. Hoods buckled. Side mirrors spun through the air. Airbags erupted inside the cabins in white clouds. One van climbed halfway onto another before sliding down and wedging itself across the tunnel. No one was harmed. Every exit was blocked. The entire rival blockade had become its own trap. Stella checked the mirror. "Still think I needed a plan?" Kael looked back at the pileup. Steam drifted from 3 crushed engine compartments. Hazard lights flashed through the haze. Rival drivers pushed harmlessly against inflated airbags and shouted at one another through sealed windows. He turned toward Stella. She was still laughing. Adrenaline brightened her eyes. Her chest rose and fell quickly. One hand remained on the wheel, while the other reached to disengage the nitrous system. Kael could hear her heartbeat. Fast, strong, thrilled. Something in him shifted. Not the wolf taking control. Not anger. Not dominance. A deeper force. More dangerous because he did not understand it. He had wanted to command her, then employ her, then understand her. Now he wanted to remain beside her while she challenged every limit he had ever accepted. Stella noticed his stare. "What? You are insane." "Probably. You drove directly at an armored blockade. I drove over it. You could not have known the ramp would hold. I inspected that tunnel 6 months ago. The construction equipment may have shifted. It did. The angle was unstable. I noticed. The distance was insufficient. Apparently not." Kael's voice dropped. "You calculated all of that in seconds." Stella glanced at him. Her laughter softened into a smile. "I told you. I'm a professional." The tunnel curved ahead. Behind them, distant alarms began to sound as the damaged vans triggered their security systems. Kael looked at the black fingerprints still visible on his shirt, then at the oil on Stella's hand. He had entered her world believing it was chaos. He was beginning to understand that it was not. Stella's speed had rules. Her risks had mathematics. Every reckless smile hid a mind processing angles, traction, pressure, weight, and timing faster than anyone he had ever known. She was not out of control. She controlled something he could not. That realization should have restored his certainty. Instead, it made her infinitely more dangerous. Stella shifted gears and sent the apex deeper into the tunnel. Kael remained silent. She glanced at him again. "You all right, skyscraper?" "Yes. You look strange. I am thinking." That explains the smoke. Normally, the insult would have earned silence cold enough to empty a room. Kael laughed. It was a low, surprised sound, rough from disuse. Stella nearly missed her next shift. She recovered instantly and stared at him. "Did the Alpha King just laugh?" "No. I heard it. You heard the engine. The engine has better timing." Kael looked at her with gold still burning faintly in his eyes. "Drive. Stella smiled. There was no obedience in it, only challenge. With pleasure. She pressed the accelerator. The apex surged forward beneath the neon tunnel lights, carrying them away from the crushed blockade and toward whatever impossible road waited next. Kael settled deeper into the passenger seat. For once, he did not reach for control. He watched Stella drive, and the surrender felt less like defeat than the beginning of something powerful enough to change the direction of his entire life. The apex tore out of the tunnel and climbed toward the upper ridges of Neon Ridge. The city opened below them in layers of light. Glass towers burned gold against the midnight sky. Elevated highways curved between buildings like glowing rivers, their traffic reduced to silver threads. Neon signs painted the clouds violet and blue, while the dark industrial districts pulsed with scattered furnace light. Stella kept one hand on the steering wheel. The other hovered near the temperature gauges. The engine no longer roared with the wild force of the nitrous system. It rumbled heavily beneath the long hood, every vibration carrying a warning. Heat shimmered through the vents. A thin ribbon of pale smoke slipped past the edge of the windshield. Kael glanced at the rising needle. The engine is overheating. Stella looked offended. It is expressing strong opinions. You pushed it beyond its limits. I expanded its understanding of those limits. The distinction will not matter if it catches fire. It won't catch fire. A sharp metallic pop sounded beneath the hood. Kael turned slowly toward her. Stella tightened her hands on the wheel. That was unrelated. To what? Everything. Another wisp of smoke curled upward. She tapped the temperature gauge with one finger. The needle remained near the red line. Come on, she whispered to the car. You cleared 3 armored vans. Don't embarrass me on a hill. Kael watched her speak to the machine with more tenderness than she had shown any living person that night. You are concerned. I am monitoring. You are bargaining with the dashboard. It responds better than you do. The road narrowed as they climbed beyond the towers. Stone barriers lined the outer edge, separating the pavement from a steep drop toward the city. The route curved around the mountain in a series of tight turns. Stella downshifted. The apex's rear tires broke loose. The car slid around the first curve in a controlled arc, sending sparks from the low exhaust tips. Kael's body shifted against the seatbelt, but this time his hand did not reach for the door. He watched Stella instead. Her movements had become familiar. The pressure of her palm against the wheel, the precise timing of her shifts, the slight narrowing of her eyes before a difficult turn, the flash of satisfaction that crossed her face when the tires caught exactly where she intended. She noticed his stillness. No death grip? I have adapted. You bent the handle during the first chase. It was inadequately reinforced. You nearly pulled it off. I was evaluating its durability. With your entire body? Kael glanced at the damaged handle. I will replace it. You can't replace it. I can commission an identical part. It was machined by hand. Then I will employ the person who made it. I made it. Kael looked at her. Stella smiled without taking her eyes from the road. You keep trying to solve me with money. I solve many problems with money. That's because money doesn't argue back. Neither do most people. That sounds lonely. Her words landed quietly. Kael turned toward the city beyond the window. He had lived above Neon Ridge for years, occupying the highest floor of the tallest syndicate tower. From there, every road, district, and business beneath his control appeared orderly. He had believed height provided perspective. Now the city looked different from Stella's passenger seat. It seemed alive, unpredictable, free. The apex rounded another bend. The road flattened ahead, ending at an overlook surrounded by dark stone and low metal rails. No other vehicles occupied the space. Stella pressed the clutch, downshifted, and pulled the handbrake. The muscle car spun. Tires screamed across the pavement. Smoke rolled past the windows as the apex completed a clean half rotation and stopped with its rear bumper facing the glittering city. The engine coughed once. Then it settled into a rough idle. Stella switched it off. Silence rushed into the cabin. Hot metal ticked beneath the hood. The exhaust system clicked as it cooled. A thin stream of smoke drifted upward, illuminated by the city behind them. Stella leaned back in her seat and released a long breath. Perfect. Kael looked toward the smoke. That is not the word I would use. We escaped 3 armored vans, jumped a blockade, shut down their communications advantage, and reached the overlook without losing a single major component. A section of your rear bumper is missing. Decoration. The engine is smoking. Atmosphere. The suspension made a sound during the last turn. It has always sounded like that. No, it has not. Stella turned her head. You've known the car for 2 hours. I pay attention. Their eyes met. Something changed inside the quiet cabin. The adrenaline of the chase had not disappeared. It remained between them, transformed into a slower heat. The dashboard glowed faintly. City light moved across Kael's face, sharpening the hard line of his jaw and reflecting gold in his eyes. Stella became aware of how close they were. The Apex had been built for speed, not personal space. Kael's broad shoulders filled the passenger side. His knees nearly touched the dashboard. His torn suit jacket stretched across his massive arms, and the black fingerprint she had placed on his shirt remained visible beneath the open collar. Her fingerprint. On the most powerful man in Neon Ridge. She cleared her throat. Well, skyscraper, this is your stop. Kael did not move. Stella gestured toward the city. You've been delivered alive, mostly clean, and with only minor emotional damage. He watched her. She reached for the dashboard and shut down the remaining electrical systems. The cabin darkened. You can call your people from here. Signal should be clear above the tunnel jammers. Kael remained silent. Your guards can arrive with one of those boring armored limousines, she continued. You can sit in the back, glare at everyone, and return to ruling your empire at 12 miles per hour. Still nothing. Stella looked at him more carefully. You did hear the part where the ride is over? Yes. Then why are you still wearing the seatbelt? Kael looked down. The belt crossed his chest, holding the Alpha King securely in the passenger seat of her damaged muscle car. He released it. The click sounded unusually loud. Stella expected him to open the door. Instead, he turned toward her. She felt the full weight of his attention. It was different from the authority he had used in the alley, different from the intimidation beneath the car and the fascination after the jump. There was no distance left in it. Stella, her name came from him like a low engine note. She rested one arm on the steering wheel. Kael. You knew who I was before I entered your vehicle. Yes. You knew the danger surrounding me. I saw the armored convoy. You could have driven away. My exit was blocked. You could have abandoned the car. Stella's expression tightened. I would never abandon the car. You could have surrendered me and let those amateurs damage my passenger door. His gaze moved over her face. You risked your life. So did you. I am difficult to kill. You're also difficult to transport. A faint smile touched his mouth. Stella's pulse quickened. Kael did not smile often. She knew this without being told. His face had been shaped by command, restraint, and the expectation that the world would obey him. Amusement changed him. It made him less distant and somehow more dangerous. He looked toward the skyline. Everything below us is mine. Stella followed his gaze. Syndicate towers rose over the financial district. Warehouses, clubs, racing circuits, transport companies, and entire blocks belonged to the Shadow Syndicate, either openly or through layers of hidden ownership. That sounds exhausting, she said. It is controlled. Same thing. I spent my life building that control. Congratulations. It was not an achievement I expected you to dismiss. I'm not dismissing it. I'm saying owning half the city doesn't look like much fun. Fun is not the purpose of power. Then what is? Stability, security, authority. 3 expensive words for fear. Kael's gaze snapped back to her. Stella held it. You think I am afraid? I think you need everything around you to behave predictably. That is discipline. You need every person to obey. That is leadership. You need every road cleared before you drive down it. That is preparation. And when something doesn't obey, you tear the door off. It was jammed. Stella's lips curved. There it is. What? The excuse. His eyes brightened. She should have looked away. Instead, she leaned slightly closer. You're terrified of not being in control. Kael's massive frame became perfectly still. The silence stretched. Then he said, Tonight I was trapped in a wrecked vehicle while enemies closed in from both sides. And you escaped. I entered a stranger's car. You hijacked it. You ignored every command I gave. They were bad commands. You drove backward toward an armored vehicle. It moved. You threw us through an alley in a full rotation. It looked good. You launched the car across an unfinished highway. You complained the entire way. You ordered me beneath the vehicle with a wrench. You bent the wrench. You prevented me from confronting the blockade. I saved your suit. You flew over 3 armored vans using a construction ramp that may have collapsed beneath us. Stella's smile faded beneath the intensity of his voice. Kael leaned toward her. His shoulder crossed the narrow center console. Heat rolled from him, carrying the clean scent of dark fabric, metal, and something wild beneath his human form. Stella refused to retreat. Sounds like you had a productive evening. I had no control over any of it. The words were quiet, more honest than anything he had said before. Stella searched his expression. His gold eyes were no longer burning with anger. They held something deeper. Something raw enough that the teasing answer on her tongue disappeared. Kael looked down at the center console separating them. I should hate this vehicle. The vehicle has done nothing wrong. It is loud, uncomfortable, impractical, and designed around dangerous excess. She can hear you. I should hate your driving. You definitely need to rethink that sentence. I should have left the moment we reached your garage. But you didn't. No. Because you needed an escape route. No. The answer came without hesitation. Stella stopped breathing. Kael leaned farther across the console. His body crowded her space, but he did not touch her. Not yet. The restraint made his presence more intense. Then why? She asked. His gaze lowered briefly to her mouth. Because for the first time in my life, I did not know what would happen next. Stella's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. And you liked it? No. She raised an eyebrow. Kael's voice became rougher. I needed it. Something inside her shifted. The city continued glittering beyond the rear window. The Apex's engine ticked and cooled. Smoke curled over the hood, but inside the cabin, the heat only increased. Kael lifted one hand. His fingers closed around the top of her seat beside her head. The leather creaked. Careful, Stella whispered. You've already damaged enough of the interior. His eyes did not leave hers. I can replace it. No, you can't. You made it. Exactly. Then you will repair it. That sounds like an order. It is a request. Stella blinked. The Alpha King had made a request. She let the significance hang between them. What are you requesting? Kael's hand moved from the seat to the loose strand of hair beside her face. He caught it carefully between his fingers. The gentleness of the motion contrasted violently with the strength she had seen tear steel apart. A permanent position. I already rejected the job. Not as my driver. Stella waited. His thumb traced the edge of her jaw. Her pulse raced beneath his touch. I do not want to return to the limousine, he said. That is very brave. I do not want the back seat. You're too tall for it. I do not want a throne if occupying it means watching life through reinforced glass while someone else chooses the road. Her humor faded completely. Kael moved closer until their faces were inches apart. His gold eyes seemed to fill her vision. I want the passenger seat. Stella swallowed. Shotgun? Permanently. You're demanding lifetime access to my car? To your car. Your garage. Your roads. His gaze dropped to her lips again. And you. The final word carried the full force of his alpha nature. The cabin seemed to contract around them. His presence became immense, possessive, and almost impossible to breathe through. It was not the cold pressure of a command. It was heat. Need. A powerful man standing at the edge of something he could not conquer and choosing to surrender instead. Stella pressed one hand against his chest. His heartbeat struck her palm. Steady. Heavy. Then faster, when her fingers curled into his shirt. You don't get to own me, she said. Kael covered her hand with his. I know. You don't choose where I drive. I know. You don't give orders in my garage. I will attempt restraint. You wear the seatbelt. Always. You never touch the steering wheel. His expression became solemn. Under any circumstance. And if I say we take the dangerous route, I ask how fast. Stella stared at him. The Alpha King waited. He did not command her answer. He did not use the power in his voice or the force of his aura. He simply remained there, massive and devastatingly vulnerable, asking for a place beside her. The wildest driver in Neon Ridge felt her control begin to slip. She smiled slowly. You're going to be a terrible passenger. I will improve. No, you won't. Probably not. And you'll complain about every jump. I will provide strategic observations. You'll bend more handles. I will reinforce them. You'll ruin my leather. I will purchase better leather. There is no better leather. Then I will protect this one. Stella tilted her chin upward. You still haven't asked properly. Kael's eyes narrowed. I requested permanent access. That sounded like a hostile takeover. I am unfamiliar with asking twice. Learn. A low growl rolled through his chest. Stella's smile widened. Careful, you're in my territory. Kael looked around the cramped cabin. Then, back at her. His hand slid behind her neck. The touch was warm, firm, and unexpectedly reverent. Stella, he said, let me stay beside you. Her heart stumbled. No title, no oath coin, no offer of money or power. Only him. Stella tightened her grip on his shirt and pulled him the final inch. Their mouths met. The kiss struck with the force of the nitrous system. Kael's control shattered. He pulled her across the center console, lifting her as though she weighed nothing. Her leather jacket scraped against the seat while his arm locked around her waist. The gear lever pressed beside them, and the steering wheel caught against her hip, but neither of them cared. His mouth moved over hers with devastating intensity. There was possession in it, but not ownership. A claim offered and returned. A promise made without contracts. Stella gripped the back of his neck. Her fingers slid into his dark hair, and Kael released a rough sound that vibrated through both of them. He had spent his life holding power behind locked doors. Now he gave it to her. Every breath, every touch, every fierce movement of his mouth admitted what he could not say. She had broken through the control he wore like armor, not by defeating him, but by showing him how alive he could feel without it. Stella kissed him harder. Kael's hand spread across her back, drawing her against his chest. The alpha aura filling the car became warm and electric, wrapping around her instead of pressing her down. When they finally separated, neither moved far. Their foreheads rested together. The windows had fogged. The engine continued ticking beneath the hood. Stella breathed against his lips. You're crushing the console. Kael looked down. The metal edge beneath his hand had folded inward. He released it. I will repair that. You? I now have experience with tools. You bent the wrench. I was distracted. By the exhaust? His gold eyes lifted to hers. By the mechanic. Stella laughed softly. Kael kissed her again, slower this time. The city glittered behind them, vast and bright, filled with roads Kael had spent years trying to control, yet none of those roads had brought him peace. Control had made his empire secure, but it had also made his world narrow. Every route had been chosen in advance. Every destination was known. Every danger was removed before he could feel its thrill. Stella had changed that in a single night. She had taught him that freedom was not the power to force every obstacle from his path. It was not the ability to command the road, crush the blockade, or decide every turn before the journey began. True freedom was finding the one person whose hands you trusted on the wheel. It was fastening the seatbelt, settling into the passenger side, and accepting that the wildest roads could lead somewhere worth reaching. It was knowing that surrender did not always mean defeat. Sometimes surrender meant choosing the person who made uncertainty feel like possibility. Kael looked through the windshield at the road descending toward Neon Ridge. Is the engine capable of returning to the garage? Stella listened to the cooling metal. Yes. Without nitrous? Probably. That is not reassuring. She slid back into the driver's seat. Kael returned to the passenger side and fastened his seatbelt. Stella started the engine. It coughed, smoked, then settled into a powerful rumble. She rested one hand on the gear lever. Ready, shotgun? Kael looked at the woman who had outrun his enemies, rejected his gold, stained his shirt, challenged his authority, and somehow claimed every part of him he had never allowed anyone to touch. His smile was slow and dangerous. Drive. Stella pressed the accelerator. The Apex spun away from the overlook, tires smoking as it charged toward the glittering roads below. Kael did not ask where they were going. He no longer needed to know. True freedom was not controlling everything in his path. It was trusting Stella to steer his life at 200 miles per hour. If you enjoyed this steamy, thrilling, and fast-paced paranormal romance audiobook, please hit the like button and subscribe for more epic stories.